On a freezing January night in 1732, the wife of a top Scottish judge was dragged from her Edinburgh home. She was beaten, gagged, and vanished to the remote edge of the known world, left to survive in squalor among these exact stone ruins on the isolated island of St. Kilda. Her husband, a high-ranking Scottish judge, coordinated every detail of her disappearance. While she suffered enforced exile, he remained in Edinburgh, hosting a public, entirely fake funeral for his wife to bury the truth of her existence. A coordinated, extrajudicial disappearance on this scale required deep political reach. This was the work of Clan Erskine. The incident highlights the clan's operating style. They functioned as a permanent shadow cabinet, maintaining control through methods that bypassed the official laws of the land. To understand how they gained that kind of unchecked leverage, we have to look back to a muddy, chaotic 11th century battlefield under the reign of King Malcolm II. According to clan legend, a fierce Scottish warrior found himself locked in close combat with invading Norsemen. With a massive swing of a heavy broadsword, he struck down the Danish general Enrique. The warrior decapitated the general, then thrust his own dagger straight through the severed head. He ran straight to the king and brandished the head in his sovereign's face, screaming the Gaelic phrase, Erskine, which translates to, upon the knife. King Malcolm rewarded this display of loyalty by bestowing the surname Erskine upon the warrior and granting the family a coat of arms featuring a hand gripping a silver dagger. It is a brutal origin story, yet this family of battlefield warriors somehow evolved into Scotland's most sophisticated political architects. They realized that raw violence had its limits. To wield lasting power, they began marrying into the very royal bloodline they once protected on the field. The family name is rooted in the land, derived from Brythonic Celtic meaning green rising ground. They established their first base on the lush banks of the River Clyde. From there, they displayed an incredible knack for political survival. In 1296, John Erskine signed the Ragman Roll, swearing fealty to England's Edward I, only for his son to immediately flip and align with the cause of Robert the Bruce. This chart illustrates the Erskine family tree and their strategic political network. By treating their 14th century marriages as hostile takeovers, they cemented their dynasty. They married one daughter to Robert the Bruce's brother and another to the High Steward. The Erskines secured a controlling interest in the royal bloodline. That leverage paid off when they were appointed the heritable keepers of Stirling Castle, transitioning from regional barons into the physical guardians of Scotland's minor monarchs. This is Alloa Tower, built in 1497. Behind these thick walls, they maintained a secure royal nursery. For 5 generations, they protected the heirs to the Scottish crown, including Mary, Queen of Scots. For over a century, the path to the Scottish throne led directly through the Erskine household. They functioned like a private military contractor, holding the nation's most sensitive assets, possessing absolute leverage over the state. By the year 1600, they had accumulated sprawling estates across the country, like the magnificent Stirling Castle here in Fife, earned through their physical proximity to the throne. That proximity was tested during the mysterious Gowrie conspiracy, when King James VI was ambushed and caught in a desperate struggle with an assassin. Sir Thomas Erskine rushed into the fray and personally slew the attacker, acting as a one-man protection detail for the king. The king rewarded this act of protection by granting Sir Thomas the titles and funds that allowed him to secure Stirling Castle for his family line. They maintained power because they were always willing to spill blood to protect the crown. But what happens when the ultimate royal bodyguards decide they no longer need the king? This is John Erskine, the Earl of Mar in the early 1700s. He was a man who shifted his political allegiances so frequently to survive that his contemporaries called him Bobbing John. After aligning with the British government to secure power, he was politically snubbed in 1714. In 1715, he raised a massive army of over 10,000 Jacobite troops to rebel against the court. He had the numbers, but not the command. His hesitant leadership at the Battle of Sheriffmuir resulted in a tactical stalemate that ended the uprising. When the rebellion collapsed, Bobbing John fled to France. To save himself, he betrayed all his former Jacobite associates, feeding their secrets directly to the British government. The fallout was total. The ancient earldom of Mar was stripped away. Their northern fortresses were abandoned, and the family estates were forfeited. The Earl's betrayal revealed the internal logic that had always guided the clan. They prioritized the preservation of their own influence above any commitment to the crown. Which brings us back to the disappearance of Lady Grange in 1732. Why would her husband, Bobbing John's brother, banish her to the isolation of St. Kilda? She had discovered Lord Grange's highly secret, treasonous Jacobite letters and threatened to expose them to the government. Her removal was a calculated cover-up, a final desperate move to protect the surviving Erskine interests from total ruin. It is an ironic twist for a clan whose modern motto translates to, "I think more." That complex maneuvering eventually fractured the clan's identity, leading to a legal split in 1885 that divided the Erskine and Mar titles into separate entities. The true contents of the treasonous letters Lady Grange found were never fully recovered. It makes you wonder what other secrets the Erskines managed to bury. Does your own family have a wild origin story or a buried secret? Tell us below.